Hello and welcome to this CELT TV interview, and today we are here with Alpesh Maisuria. Did I pronounce that correctly?
That's fine.
And would you like to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do here at UEL?
Sure. So, my name is Dr. Alpesh Maisuria. I am a senior lecturer in education studies. My broad kind of expertise is around critical sociology of education, particularly focusing on social class and social transformation.
Interesting. So you've been nominated for one of the Student-Led Teaching Awards for Best Lecturer. Could you please tell us what it means to you to be nominated for such an award?
Yeah, it was a surprise, but obviously I'm very happy and I feel very honoured that students have gone out of their way and taken time from their busy schedules to put me forward and ultimately shortlist me for the Best Lecturer Prize. I think it's a vindication of the stuff that I do with the students, and the students also their engagement as well with the kind of stuff I want to do with them around critical sociology of education.
So can you tell us a little bit more about this stuff that you do? So for example, what approach or characteristics do you have that you think has led to being nominated for this award?
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any kind of magic bullet. I think every lecturer has their own strengths and weaknesses, and equally, we have a very diverse cohort of students as well that we work with. And I think there's a couple of things though that I do personally with my own practice, and it might be a little bit unorthodox maybe, because I don't necessarily see. I think it's important for me not to see the people in front of me as anything other than students and learners. So I don't see the people in front of me as fee-paying customers or clients or service users. These are people who I'm going to be learning with, and I think developing that kind of relationship with the students creates the kind of rapport that I need to get students involved in politics and ideology and theory, which is not necessarily the kind of things that my students have come to university to engage with. But having that relationship is really, really important. Yeah.
Some of your students have commented on your passion, your enthusiasm, and your innovative ways in your teaching. They've also said that you have the ability to break down complex topics and then build that complexity through example in their everyday lives. In fact, one of your students said, and I quote, "When coming to UEL, I didn't dare dream that I would ever want to be more than a BA, but Alpesh's models are responsible for me thinking way beyond the bachelor's level." So what advice could you share with us in respect to what you think is the best approach when it comes to being the best lecturer?
Well, okay, so we're moving to this kind of notion where we think that teaching excellence comes from lecturers. I completely reject that. I don't agree with that at all, which is an unpopular thing to say. I think teaching excellence comes from the way that you treat students and you work with students. And I think teaching excellence comes from students. So a good teaching and learning environment has to include students. And it has to particularly make students feel as though they own the module and the learning experience. If you can convince, if you can develop a situation where students feel like they're owning their own module and their learning experience and their learning journey, they're going to be much more kind of willing and compelled to be part of that journey and shape that journey. And I think that's what teaching excellence is about. Whilst I've been shortlisted for for the award, I think it's just as much to do with the students and the way that they have interacted with the module, which has made them kind of enjoy the module and their learning experience. And one thing that I tried to do in respect to the quote that you've just given to me, it's about kind of making students' learning experiences as part of the real world. If I came into my classroom and I started with Marxism and politics, I can absolutely guarantee you my students would turn off there and then. That's not the way to do it. So I start with the student. and then a pull through kind of politics and ideology and theory into their learning experiences. So, for instance, one of the exercises that I do with my students every single week is called "What's in the News." So I make my students come prepared to the classes, and we discuss the news stories in relation to the module. So it's about kind of contextualising what they're doing in the classroom. You know, when they're coming through the door into Alpesh's classroom, they can then get to a point where politics, ideology, and theory doesn't just exist in Alpesh's classroom. It's part of the outside world as well, and they're interacting with it. Each one of my students now recognises that they are neoliberal ideological beings. They're embodiments of neoliberalism. They're living neoliberalism. It's not as if it's something which is kind of separate and it only exists in the learning kind of classroom. It's everywhere. And it's about kind of my students recognising the world and being able to name the world and identify the world. Then they can start to engage with it in a much more kind of critical way, and they feel hopefully empowered. And you know, it's inspiring for me as well to see my students you know, lobbying politicians and going on picket lines and, you know, going on demonstrations, because it shows that they're starting to engage with not only the learning experience at UEL, but also life in a different kind of way, beyond what they do as part of my module.
That's really fantastic. Thank you so much, and once again, congratulations on your nomination.